Hey guys, today we're going to take a look at the Hifiman HE1000 Stealth. So this is basically the newest upgraded version of the HE1000 headphones by Hifiman. Hifiman is a Chinese company that's been making planar magnetic headphones for a very long time. They're actually one of the pioneers of planar magnetic headphone technology and helped bring it to most audiophiles back in the late 2000s. So planar magnetic technology is a little bit different than your typical headphone technology. You guys can look it up. It's a bit more complex. Most headphones use a dynamic driver, which is basically the same as how speakers work. Planar magnetics use like a thin film in order to like excite the film, and then that's the way they create sound. So it's definitely more complex. Anyways, Hifiman, along with a few others like Audis and Dan Clark and now Meze, are probably the most well known for creating consumer planar magnetic headphones. So the HE1000 has always been, I would say, near their top of the line. It's not exactly their flagship. Their flagship is the Susvara, but right below their flagship Susvara sits the HE1000 SE and HE1000 Stealth. So this is pretty close to their flagship level headphones. Retails for $1,400 US, which is quite a bit of money. I got this a little bit cheaper, a couple $100 off secondhand, because yeah, I don't have enough money to buy it brand new. But yeah, I've always wanted to try the Stealth version of the HE1000. I actually own the HE1000 V2s, which I really like. They're probably the most detailed headphones I've ever listened to. Actually, that's not true. They're most detailed headphones I own. I've listened to the Susvaras before, which are even more detailed. But yeah, the HE1000 V2s, which is their second revision, that came out back in 2016 and 2017, I think that's probably the most detailed pair of headphones that I own currently. But I felt like the sound and the tuning, actually I like the detail in the sound. I just find the tuning is a little bit too neutral or balanced for me. It just doesn't sound as fun as my Arya Stealths, which is another headphone that Hifiman makes. So I have the Hifiman Arya Stealth as well as the HE1000 V2s. I like the Arya Stealth's tuning more because it's a little bit more V-shaped, like just slightly more V-shaped. It's still relatively balanced though. But the HE1000 V2s are a little bit too much for me. Like they're too analytical sounding, maybe a little bit too neutral sounding for me. So I heard that the Stealth version of the HE1000s, which are essentially the HE1000 V3s, this is the upgraded, well, I should say the revised version of the HE1000's third revision. Yeah, these ones are made with the Stealth Magnets design, which is their newer design. I think this came out just a few years ago, like 2022 or something, so fairly recently. I heard that the Stealth Magnets make the sound a little bit more fun and dynamic, much like the Arya Stealths. So yeah, then I think this is probably the headphone for me. They're open back headphones, they're planar magnetic, and I really like the Arya sound signature, but I want to have the HE1000's detail and resolution and clarity. So I think that the HE1000 Stealth, if my assumption is correct, should have all the detail and clarity of the HE1000 V2, but with the fun and dynamic tuning of the Arya Stealth. So yeah, let's take a look. First of all, it's in the Stealth box here. I call this the Stealth box because Hifiman has changed their packaging. Compared to the HE1000 V2, their packaging is not as fancy, honestly. To be honest, the HE1000 V2's box is way better. This is just like a more plain looking box. So that's a little bit unfortunate. I don't know, I guess this is like their thing. They're gonna say like, oh, we want to cut down on materials, it's better for environment, blah, blah, blah. But we all know that this box is not as good looking as the V2 box. Anyways, nothing can be done. If you want the Stealth version, you're gonna have to get this box with it. But there's one consolation to this box though. So we open it up, again, very basic box. So you get this, which is the cables here. So you get one set of, Hifiman uses 3.5 millimeter connectors on their headphones. So this is 3.5 millimeter to 6.35 or 1/4 inch jack. This is going to be used for your desktop headphone amplifiers, and I do recommend getting a desktop headphone amplifier because these headphones, the HE1000s, are known for being relatively hard to drive. So yeah, I'm going to try using my DAP, which is a pretty high-end DAP, but I do recommend if you're going to be buying these kind of headphones, then yeah, these are going to be relatively hard to drive. So I think the HE1000 V2s that I have is probably, along with my Bear Dynamic T1s, probably these two are the hardest headphones I have to drive. So really they're equivalent to like 600 ohm headphones essentially, even though their actual impedance isn't that much, but they actually are that hard to drive. And another set of cables you get are 3.5 millimeter to 4-pin XLR, which is a balanced connector. So this is also something that's mostly used on desktop headphone amplifiers. You will not find this on your DAPs, which I'm using. So I'm going to be using my Hifiman R6 DAP, but this does no space to take in a 4-pin XLR. So I'm going to have to find an adapter for this into 4.4 millimeter. So yeah, this I only have a 4.4 millimeter balanced input. So I had to find some converter from 4-pin to 4.4 millimeter. So yeah, this only comes with desktop class cables because I guess Hifiman assumes that you'll want to listen to this at home on your desktop headphone amplifier. But of course, I do listen to my desktop headphone amplifier, but I also want to use my DAP as well. But yeah, I also have a desktop amp I can use, so maybe I'll use that as well while I wait for an adapter. And yeah, so the one consolation of this little design here, we all know the box is not as fancy as the HE1000 V2 box, but at least with the Stealth box we do get a stand. So it comes with a built-in headphone stand here. So that's, I guess, the one silver lining of getting this crappier box is at least we get this nice, well, not nice, but we get a foam headphone stand here. So it's better than nothing, right? It's not a great headphone stand, and it's definitely not a headphone stand you would put a $1,400 headphone on, but at least it's something, right? At least you get some kind of headphone stand here, which is, yeah, it's okay. It'll serve your purpose. It's not a great headphone stand, but at least they give you something. And yeah, this is the HE1000 Stealth, which is essentially the HE1000 V3s. So honestly, there is almost no visible difference between this one and the HE1000 V2s. They look pretty much the same, and there's no marking saying that they're stealth. The only way you would know that they're stealth apparently is that you have to look through this the magnets here, and the magnets, I think if you can see some sort of green light, I think if you squint and you see some sort of green light on them, or you see like a certain shape of the magnets, then you can tell that they're stealth. But this is something I wish Hifiman could have done, is they should have written some kind of thing here to say that it's a stealth version. Because if you don't know, like honestly, this could just be the V2 version, and it's really hard to tell between this and a stealth version because there's no visible difference unless you really look closely. Yeah, they don't mark it anywhere on the headphone that this is a stealth version. So I guess you just have to kind of look at the magnets to see if they're actually the stealth version or not. I think supposedly the stealth magnets look a little bit more blocky. But yeah, otherwise it looks very much the same as the V2. So yeah, same material for the headband. This is definitely better built than the Arya's, but they're still not great. I mean, for a pair of $1,400 headphones, like these should be better built, but they're not. They're at least better built than the Arya's are, but that's not saying much. The Arya's really are kind of like not very well built at all. They're just okay. The build is okay. It's not great. Whereas the Arya's build was actually terrible. So anyways, it's a step up over the Arya's, but that's not saying much. They can swivel like this, and then they have these big window shades that Hifiman is pretty much a Hifiman design, that they use these window shades for their planar magnetic ear cups here. Obviously they're open back headphones. Not only are they open back, they're probably their most leaky headphones I've ever listened to, because they have, yeah, this window shade design. While it does look very distinctive and you know, you can create a very big sound stage from this kind of design, they also leak the most sound. So just keep that in mind. If you're using these at home, they leak sound probably more than any other open back I have. So yeah, that's benefits and drawbacks, right? I mean, the benefit of this is you get a pretty natural sounding wide sound stage out of these headphones, but then the drawback being that, yeah, they leak a lot of sound. Anyways, they look pretty much exactly the same as the HE1000 V2s. But yeah, they're the Stealth version, so hopefully the tuning should be a little bit more fun and exciting. That's probably the main reason why I got it. And yeah, I'll test this out, and I will compare it actually with my HE1000 V2, and actually want to compare it with my Arya Stealths as well to see what the differences are. So yeah, stay tuned guys. Yeah, also you know which ear cup is which because yeah, I'll say left on the left one and right on the right one. It's right on the headbands right here. Yeah, see that one's right and that one says left right there. So yeah, that's basically how you can tell. So just to show you guys what I'm talking about with the boxes, so this is the HE1000 Stealth box. This is using Hifiman's new box redesign that they use for their newer headphones. Yeah, it's just a plain cardboard box, right? And sure, you get this little stand inside of it, but other than that, yeah, this is a pretty underwhelming box, I'd say. Just this cardboard box here. So to show you guys what it used to be like, this is the HE1000 V2 box. And looks a lot nicer, right? A lot nicer, and this is what comes inside of it. So yeah, get this nice velvet type of covering here, and yeah, this is way better looking than the cardboard box that we get now, right? So I mean, no comparison, right? This is, sure, you get a stand, but I mean, it's just like basic foam. That's it. And cardboard box, and compared to this, the box that they used to use, I know they're gonna say, well, we're saving on the environment and everything, but come on. Like, I'm pretty sure the majority of people, most if not everyone would want to have this box instead. This much better covering and place to put your headphones. Yeah, I mean, just overall, it's a much more luxurious looking box for sure. So definitely disappointed that Hifiman went with this newer box redesign. It's not as good. I mean, really no comparison here, right? So I personally, that's just a gripe that I have. I think it's just I think that the box redesign is definitely underwhelming compared to what they used to have. So this is the HE1000 V2 box versus the HE1000 Stealth box. Alright guys, so now I have the Hifiman HE1000 Stealth and also the Hifiman Arya Stealth both here. I don't have the HE1000 V2 with me right now, but I definitely remember the sound signature of the V2, and I did a video on it already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try out these headphones and tell you guys what I think about the HE1000 Stealth. Alright, so first I'm going to try out the Aryas again and tell you guys a bit more about the Aryas because it's honestly been a bit while since I tried these headphones out. I got the HE1000 V2s after, and then I didn't really go back to the Aryas as much. Although the Aryas sound really fun, as I remember. So just to, for me to remember what the sound signature is like, I'm going to just check out the Aryas again, and I'm going to tell you guys what I think about the Aryas, and then I'll move on to the HE1000 Stealth. Alright, let's go. Yeah, so the Arya Stealth is a really good headphone. I mean, I think I have said that in my initial review of the Arya Stealth, but this is probably the best sounding open back headphones under $1,000. So they retail for $900 US MSRP, and yeah, they sound really, really detailed for that price point. So I think the most detailed sounding headphones with the best soundstage that I've heard out of any headphone under $1,000. So certainly the Arya Stealth, I really like it actually. The tuning's done pretty well. Yeah, it's fun sounding. Like, it's not exactly like neutral like the HE1000 V2 is, because it's got a little bit more highs, a little bit more bass. I think this is a more fun headphone to listen to than the HE1000 V2s, honestly. And you still get a lot of clarity and detail and soundstage, although not quite as much as the HE1000 V2s. But yeah, overall, I think the Arya Stealth is a really good headphone. I mean, I just wish it was built better. The build quality isn't that good. It's not the most comfortable either, but certainly in terms of the sound, it's great. The Arya Stealth is the best sounding headphone I've ever heard under $1,000. So that's going to, yeah, that's going to basically set the stage for me to try out the HE1000 Stealth. So the HE1000 Stealth is $1,400. It's $500 more than the Arya Stealth. Let me see if it's worth that $500 difference. Certainly in terms of the build quality, right, you guys can tell that the HE1000 Stealth is a level above in terms of build quality compared to the Arya Stealth. Although it's still not like great. It's still not like up to the level of I'd say like Beyerdynamic or yeah, or Meze, yeah, so, or Focal even. So it's not really up to the standards compared to other high-end headphone makers. But still, I mean, it's definitely higher quality build than the Arya Stealth is. Similar design. It's got the window shade pattern, but the drivers are a bit larger on the HE1000 Stealth, or just the HE1000 in general. And yeah, as you guys can see, the build quality is just a level above. Yeah, so let's check out the HE1000 Stealth. Been waiting for this one for a while. And yeah, I'll also tell you guys how it compares to the HE1000 V2 and my impressions of that. But yeah. Alright, so the HE1000 Stealth, as I expected, it definitely has more of a V-shaped signature compared to the HE1000 V2s. Definitely has more bass. The V2s are a little bit light on the bass. The V2s are actually very, you know, it's detailed, but it's neutral bright. So it's got a fairly flat signature to it. And I actually didn't really like that because I don't want to have too flat. It's not very exciting. I want to have something more exciting, and that's exactly what the HE1000 Stealth is. It basically takes the HE1000 V2, but just changes the tuning a little bit to make it give it more bass and round off the highs a little bit. The thing about the V2s is that the highs were a little bit too shrill. It can be a bit harsh to some people or fatiguing to some people, and the bass was a bit light. So that's the thing about the V2s. The HE1000 Stealth keeps the detail and resolution of the V2s, but ups the bass and also rounds off the highs, so it isn't quite as sharp or fatiguing. Or it isn't quite as harsh. So yeah, overall, I think it is, for me, this is an improvement over the V2. I mean, they're different. Some people might still prefer the V2 because it's got a more flatter sound signature, but for me, I want something a little bit more fun sounding, so that's what the Stealth is. The HE1000 Stealth improves upon the V2 for me because it adds more bass, makes it more fun sounding, and rounds off the highs. So the highs isn't quite as shrill or as fatiguing as it is on the V2. So overall, I like it better. Now compared to the Aryas, is it worth 500 bucks more? No, I don't think so. I think the HE1000, we were talking about diminishing returns whenever you go up, right? HE1000 is not worth $500 more than the Aryas because the Aryas are already really detailed headphones. Now, the HE1000s certainly are better in many ways. I mean, this is a more detailed headphone with better resolution. It's got bigger soundstage, and this one, the Stealth version, definitely, it has more bass than the Aryas does. So this one has the most bass out of the Aryas and the V2s, and the Stealth has the most bass out of all three. And overall, I think if you're happy, like if you have the Aryas and you're happy with them, then that's great. If you were looking for an upgrade in terms of detail and resolution in soundstage, then the HE1000 Stealth makes sense to upgrade to the Stealth from the Arya Stealth. Now, because of diminishing returns, I don't think it's worth $500 more, but certainly it's a better headphone in terms of the detail and soundstage. So, yeah. That's really all I have to say about that. This is a really nice headphone. I think Arya is still the best value because the Arya Stealth is a great sounding headphone, especially for the price for $900. It's still expensive, of course, but it's the best sounding headphone I've ever heard under $1,000. It's not quite as good sounding as the HE1000, but it is better value because this is $1,400. So yeah, if you don't mind the build quality, I would say for most people, the Arya Stealth is probably the way to go in terms of bang for the buck, in terms of value. But if you do want, to gain that little bit extra, there's not a huge difference in terms of the detail and soundstage out of these two. Of course, the HE1000 Stealth has more, but there's not like a massive difference. That's what I'm saying is diminishing returns. You get a, slightly more soundstage and slightly more detail out of the HE1000 Stealth. Also, the bass has been pushed up a little bit more, even compared to the Arya Stealth, which is already more than the V2s. So overall, I have to say, really depends on your, I'd say really depends. So talking about bang for the buck, the Arya Stealth is the best bang for the buck out of all of them. It's the best value because these are just great sounding headphones, really at any price range. But if you're talking about under $1,000, then these, yeah, these are pretty much the best sounding headphones under $1,000. So I think in terms of the value, the Arya Stealth is the best out of them. But HE1000 V2 versus Stealth is a bit more interesting. It really depends on what you prefer in terms of sound signature. If you like to have a flatter sounding headphone, like very neutral sounding, then the V2s are good. But if you want to have a little bit more fun, more bass, and you don't like the highs to be as shrill or as piercing as it sometimes can be on the V2, then the Stealth is the way to go. For me, I think the HE1000 Stealth is my favorite out of all these. It's a marginal improvement over the Arya Stealth in terms of soundstage and resolution, better build quality than the Arya Stealth, and yeah, and also it's more fun sounding than the V2s. So yeah, that's my personal preference. I prefer the HE1000 Stealth out of those three. But let me know what you guys think. I'll have a sound comparison test coming up so you guys can maybe hear the differences. And then I'll get my audiophile friend to also chime in on the differences. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Really, all three of these headphones are great headphones. Really depends on what you like. If you're on a budget, if you're looking for a headphone under $1,000, Arya Stealth is the way to go. If you're looking for a flatter sound signature, but very, very detailed, very reference, then the HE1000 V2 is the way to go. If you're looking for something more, fun sounding, but with the same level of detail as the V2s, then the Stealth is the way to go. One thing I forgot to mention is the power requirements. So the Arya Stealth is definitely not easy to drive, but it's not the hardest headphone to drive either. But I would say that if you have like a mobile phone or something like that, you probably need something a little bit more than that to drive the Arya Stealths. I think if you have a DAP, a digital audio player, or like an external headphone amp, either a desktop or a USB dongle, like a DAC dongle, then that's probably what you'll need to drive the Arya Stealths. It's not the most hardest to drive, but definitely needs a bit more power. Now, the HE1000 V2s and the Stealth, these require even more power to drive than the Arya Stealths do. So I definitely recommend, you pretty much have to have a desktop amplifier, headphone amplifier, or a DAC dongle in order to drive the HE1000 V2s and Stealths, yeah, or a DAP, like what I'm using. So that's pretty much it in terms of power requirements. For Arya Stealth, yeah, I recommend getting an external headphone amplifier for this. For the HE1000, you definitely need to have an external headphone amplifier for these. So yeah, in terms of the power requirements of being like how difficult it is to drive, yeah, the HE1000s are probably the hardest headphones I have to drive out of all the headphones I've owned. Or yeah, pretty much on par with the 600 ohm Bear Dynamic T1s that I owned. But these are definitely pretty hard to drive. So if you guys are wondering how hard they are to drive, I definitely recommend getting a desktop headphone amplifier or a USB DAC dongle, especially for the HE1000s because they pretty much need them, and also recommended for the Aryas as well. So yeah, that's it guys. Stay tuned for the sound comparison test coming up and my friend's impressions. So stay tuned, and as always, thanks for watching. Bass compared to the...
It's definitely more bass. That part is for sure. But the bass is like still tasteful.
Right,
yeah,
right.
It's still good. The treble is interesting actually. Parts of the treble, you see, I can't compare with the Michael Jackson one because the one on here is an MP3.
Okay.
So on the MP3, it just, yeah, like the treble sounds pretty bad.
Okay.
I'm not sure is it the MP3 or is it the headphones. Yeah. But when in the Jimi Hendrix one, it seems like the upper treble is a bit more rolled off, or at least not as more tamed compared to this one, like the upper treble. But then in terms of like the middle treble, I actually hear some pretty good detail in there. Yeah, I can hear the cymbals and everything pretty well. So, but it just doesn't have that piercing, seamless, bright upper treble. Right. This one has it sometimes, once in a while. Right. Actually, this is not too bad. Mine actually has it a bit more. Right. And then the mids are pretty. It's alright, pretty warm, pretty okay. It's there, but I think it's well-rounded mid. It could be just slightly recessed compared to the bass, but only slightly, but it's still okay. But just a bit recessed compared to the bass, because the bass is actually quite a bit more here. Right. Yeah, but the bass is still tasteful though. So yeah, this one is definitely more neutral in reference in terms of all across the board. It's a tough choice. They're both actually pretty nice, honestly. Man.
Yeah, I think this one is, I wanted to have the Arya, more like the Arya sound signature, and I think this one definitely is closer to that. So
sort of. Arya is actually a little bit different too. Your Arya Stealth is actually different from. It's like somewhere between these two. Your Arya Stealth.
Right.
Yeah, your Arya Stealth is actually, the bass isn't as strong as this one. actually. This bass is stronger than the Arya Stealth.
Right.
The Arya Stealth actually is still a bit more neutral than this one. Yeah. And then the Arya Stealth, I think the mids are a little bit more forward than this one. The Arya Stealth, the mids are more forward. The bass is a bit more than that one, but less than this one, somewhere between the two of them. But the mids are actually more forward than this one. This one compared to the bass is a bit more laid back. Yeah. So but then the soundstage for this one is bigger than the Arya Stealth.
Yeah, and it has more detail, of course.
Yeah, more detail. Yeah, soundstage is also bigger. But the Arya Stealth, everything, the soundstage a little bit smaller, but everything's more immediate. Everything. So all three headphones are actually a little bit different from each other. All three are nice soundstages. It seems like Hifiman doesn't mix shitty like sound signatures in general. Like they're not gonna be too bad either way. It's always gonna be a good headphone. So all three are actually good, but in their own little different way.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. They're different models, so I personally would prefer this one because I find like this one's a little bit too flat for me. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know, man. I like all three. All three are good.
Yeah, the Stealth is good though.
Yeah.
As for the V2, did you want to keep mine? And then
I might need to actually compare a little bit longer first beforehand, if that's okay. Because the thing is, I've been breaking mine in, and then I need to see if those breaking in, how far.
I'm probably not going to keep the V2 when because I like the Stealth a little bit better. Okay. So
do you want to hold on to this one for a while to compare first? And then when you do decide to sell, let me borrow this for maybe a few days just to compare with mine. So I can choose.
You can just borrow it now.
Okay, all right, then I can just choose first. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, because no, I think I definitely prefer the Stealth more because that one's I remember it's like a little bit too flat for me.
Okay, I see. Yeah, that's like pretty bassy, but it's still tasteful though, the bass. So it still makes it actually kind of soulful and fun. I think just the mids. Although the mids are actually well rounded. Yeah, the mids are well rounded.
And the other thing is that the highs are not as piercing as the V2, and that's the thing, especially on yours. Yours is like way more piercing.
Yeah, mine's even worse.
Yeah, so like so this is like more well rounded there. So like that's another thing I like about the Stealth better.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Yeah, more bass, and then the treble isn't as piercing.
Right.
So.